I signed up to speak on both agenda item 19A and 19B, and since we're discussing them both, I hope that I have the courtesy of the council to speak for the 6 to 10 minutes that I'm allotted. I think the comments will flow better that way. My name is Veronica Carvajal. I'm an attorney with Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid. We're a nonprofit that provides free legal services to the poor. And we were heavily involved with the ASARCO air permit struggle, as was the city, starting in 2005. After the permit was denied by the judges and then allowed by the commission, we were, arm in arm with the city in terms of opposing this site reopening. Since then, since ASARCO announced that it would not reopen, things have changed, and alliances have shifted, concerns have shifted, but legal aid remains committed to making sure that this site is no longer a hazard to the children and to the people of this community. At this time, we represent ex-ASARCO workers, most of whom are extremely sick. They have Parkinson's, MS, all kinds of rashes. They've had strokes at the age of 40. These are very sick people, and we're very concerned about their health, and we're very concerned about what this means in terms of the quality of the remediation of the site. We've heard about ASARCO West, and I'll refer to ASARCO West as the facility, as the operations of ASARCO that we've all grown to hate and dislike and to fight against. I'm also not convinced that smart code is the best zoning change for that area. I think maybe a green economy would be much better suited for that facility. In terms, though, of ASARCO East, let's talk about that, because that is a huge concern for us. ASARCO West is where the operations took place for hundreds of years. It is where the illegal burning of PCBs took place, and that was, that made the news yesterday where beneath President Obama's visit. The illegal burning of military hazardous waste took place on ASARCO West. The creation of illegal dump sites also took place there. And Mr. Puga is correct. We have tirelessly fought for the last year and a half to make sure that my client's comments and expertise are incorporated into the plans. We're not satisfied with that, and we've gone back and forth with him and the TCQ and the EPA about that. Setting that aside, for ASARCO West, you have determined that schools, hospitals, daycares, extended care facilities, and a couple of others are not suitable uses for that property. I echo that. I echo, and I would say that you should not allow that on ASARCO East. And there are two main reasons for that. ASARCO East is not simply a vacant piece of property. So the notices that went out to the neighborhood associations and to the property owners that you all sent out, since it was your application on this issue, they mischaracterized the site. It's not just a piece of land that's been vacant and unused. It was a landfill for decades, possibly the entire duration of ASARCO's operations. ASARCO not only left debris there, it also left transformers that contained PCBs there. It left anything that it wanted to get rid of that it couldn't burn through the furnaces. It dumped on that property. Now, Mr. Puga is correct. There have been some efforts to remove hundreds of thousands of cubic yards of land or dirt from that facility, but it's not enough. And we know it's not enough because the sampling has not been done to date. And I'll talk about the sampling in a second. The second concern that we have is that we must not forget that in 2003, the EPA was in Kern Place and Sunset Heights and other communities removing lots of land from their backyards and their front yards because they were polluted with lead and arsenic and cadmium and zinc and other pollutants. And the EPA spent millions of dollars during those cleanups, and the EPA then asked ASARCO to reimburse it for those cleanups. Well, this site east of the highway is much closer to the facility's operations than Kern Place and Sunset Heights and other neighborhoods. So we should expect that it is as polluted, if not more polluted, than those communities were. We know, in terms of the landfill issues, we know that the city owns landfills. You all know that you have regulations that you must abide by. There's lining that has to be put into place. There are standards that you have to abide by in terms of testing. There are certain trash that you cannot accept if it's hazardous or contains PCBs, for example. This landfill is much more different and much more toxic because this landfill was not regulated. It was never policed. And we don't believe that the excavations that have taken place have done enough to remove the contamination, which leads into the sampling issues. ASARCO hired Hydrometrics, which was its own company, a subsidiary. We have proof that it was a subsidiary of ASARCO. It hired it to do much of its sampling. And when Hydrometrics did its sampling, which we believe is very questionable, it did, however, find that in ASARCO East, arsenic levels were found to be between 1,000 and 10,000 parts per million. The standard for arsenic is 200. It's much higher than the standard. The lead levels are found to be up to 30,000 parts per million, and the standard is 1,000 parts per million. This is coming from ASARCO, who I think can all agree was a questionable source of information, but even they found that there were high levels of contaminants in that area. The trustees' plan, we feel, is inadequate because it does not contain enough sampling or samples to be taken. It doesn't test in all the areas that are of a concern and could possibly be housing homes or schools in the future. And it does not test for the things that we're most concerned about: PCBs, the encycled materials, and of course the arsenic, lead, and other contaminants of concern. We're concerned that the sampling is not being done deep enough. Topography in that area is very complicated, and these contaminants are very complicated as well. Some of them migrate. Some of them will not stay on the surface of the land. And so we believe that the sampling also needs to be done at a deeper level.
Ms. Carr, your time.
I'll just go ahead and exchange.
Okay.
How much more time
Thank you.
do you need?
I have a minute, maybe, to go. My question to the City Council is, have you looked at the sampling data? Have you looked at the remediation action work plan? Because Mr. Puga has admitted it's a landfill. It's no secret it was a landfill. The plan was released in October 2010. It's been finalized just recently. Has the city looked at the comments that we made, that the EPA contractors made? Has the city looked at the reports that we did on the dump sites that were also on ASARCO West? And really, is the city willing to take on any liability from this? Now, Mr. Puga didn't apply for this application to rezone. Neither did any future owner. The city did. The city decided it wanted to change the zoning in ASARCO East. The concern here is that it did so without fully understanding the contamination at that site. What if years from now, when homes and schools are built on this site, someone finds high levels of lead? Who will be the responsible party then? The city is now knowingly authorizing this zoning, which I agree with City Councilman Robinson. This is premature. The sampling plans have just been finalized. They have not been approved, and to date, they don't include some of the contaminants that we're concerned about. We are all for smart growth and for the smart code in the correct areas, but I don't think it's fair to subject our future children and homeowners to an area that may be contaminated beyond repair at this point in time. And we ask that you reconsider, deny this, and postpone it for a later time, or reconsider postponing this until you've done the proper investigations. Or 3, that you consider applying the same restrictions to ASARCO East that you have of ASARCO West, and not allow schools, hospitals, and daycares to be possibly at this former landfill. Thank you.
Thank you. And after we take all the public comment, I'll